I've got a 2006 Dodge Sprinter, and the window assembly has broken, and it is a very small piece of plastic that goes into this track right here. The grease is very dry, and the window is held up by this small piece, this small plastic piece that goes into this channel right here. And of course, it breaks in a rainstorm or when you need to lock the car at night or something like that. It's going to break at a very inconvenient time. And it's this little piece right here that's broken. I look for the part inside of all of the various places that you can get parts. Basically what you have to do is you have to buy this assembly, you know, to replace basically the motor and everything associated with the motor. The gear, the worm drive, this right here, the gear that drives the door up and down with the worm drive. There's nothing wrong with the window, there's nothing wrong with the channel, there's nothing wrong with the arm, there's nothing wrong with the gear or the worm drive or the electronics. It's this small 5-cent part. If I recall correctly, this part in various places that you can buy it is somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 if you buy this. Even if you go and buy it yourself, you have to buy the whole part. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you what I do. I created a part with Adobe Illustrator, and I'll put the Adobe Illustrator file in with this video so that you can take it, what I do with the Illustrator file, and you can do what you want to with it. But essentially I cut a piece of 5 to 6 ply modeling plywood that I use from model airplanes, and I reassemble, I drill out this hole, this arm that it's on, and I build a new arm and put this piece of plywood in this channel right here. And essentially, instead of having to buy this whole assembly, I create the part and I rebuild this arm assembly right here and get the window to go up and down again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and show you how I build this part. I'm going to basically do it on my Adobe Illustrator, and I'll create the part with my laser, and then I'll put it all together, and I'll do my best to put this in a place that's helpful for everybody. But if you have this happen to you, I mean, obviously if you've done this, you know what I'm talking about, and either you replace this entire thing or you just build yourself a part and put it together. Well, with this Sprinter, yeah, it's got issues, so I'm going around one at a time and fixing all these issues that was basically neglected. Rust and bodywork and building it out to sleep in and stuff like that, all sort of at the same time. But this broke yesterday as the rain was coming. We tried to put up the windows and we couldn't put up the windows. So anyway, here we go. I'll go build the part, and I'll show you the laser process and the part that I build, and then I'll show you the finished product at the same time. So what I do is I use Adobe Illustrator to create this small part. This goes into the channel. I create this with 5-ply modeling plywood that I use from model airplanes. I will put this Adobe Illustrator file somewhere on the internet so you can download it, but essentially it is a rectangle with rounded edges and a hole for the screw in the middle. It's pretty simple, but it's very effective, as you'll see when I get this project done. So here's a scrap piece of this plywood that I'm going to be using. I know not everybody's going to have a laser, but you can go to your library probably and use something very similar to this. I just send a vector image to the laser printer, and the laser printer will actually cut this part out for me. So nothing special here. It's kind of noisy, but I will show the process. You can do the same, like I said, in a library or your local makerspace. So I'll just show you how it's done. And then I'll go ahead and cut this part. There's the part. cut out with the hole in the center, and it's long. Turn these fans off. It's long so that it fits in that channel, and it's cut precisely to the width of the channel. And my take on this part is that it's wooden because I didn't want metal on metal contact. I'm going to grease this part up just like it's a piece of metal. But if I have to replace this part in, say, 5 or 10 years, that's a 5-second job for a 5-cent part. Okay, so this is the part that I just made. And obviously I've got to pull the window down to here and put it in. I've got to build the screw that's going to go in there. But I'm going to put that right in that channel after I clean the channel, the grease out of the channel, and put some more grease in there. I'm just going to put regular automotive grease in there. I'm going to grease this part up really good. And basically what I'm going to do is drill out this bolt that's in here with a drill. And I'm going to replace that bolt with some threaded bolt and a couple of nuts that I'm going to grind down and things like that, just so that it fits in that channel really well. You know, you could MIG weld this thing back on if you wanted to, if you've got that equipment. I do, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use a nut, because if I have to replace the part, it'll be really easy to get off after. I suspect that this part will outlast my ownership of this truck. Basic setup of this this slider. I'm just going to use brass bolts. You don't have to use brass bolts, but I'm going to flatten this end so that it's pretty flat right here, because it's all nice and tight. It's got split washer in there so that it's not going to come loose. But I'm going to sand off. I'm not going to sand, but grind off the ability to turn that screw there, and it's going to be pretty flat up against there. So just enough to hold it in that channel. And then I'm going to come off that just a little bit. That's not exactly the size. I drill this hole out right here, and then this arm is going to fit up against this, and I've got another set of nuts, washers, and a split washer just to keep it in place. And it's going to hold it up against in there, you know, nice and snug. It's going to be all greased up, but this arm is going to hold that in there. So as the window goes up and down, this is going to slide back and forth and do its job like it's supposed to. I cleaned this channel out with penetrating oil just to get all the grease out, because the grease is like stupid hard. I mean, it's like bubble gum in there. So instead of leaving any of that, I got all that out. But this little tool is going to go inside this channel like this, so it's going to go back and forth. And my next step now is I need to cut a lot of this rod off, because it's going to be something like that. And then this piece, I also cut the rod that was in there out, and it fell, of course, somewhere down there. I'll get this rod to the proper size, the length that I want, and then I'll connect this all up and grease everything up, and then show it work. I just didn't want to skip the step of showing you that, you know, you just clean this out really good so that there's no grease, and then you need to put new grease in there. Okay, here's the installed part. I have just put new grease in there. I use high temp grease, but obviously you do not have to do that. I flatten the back nut so that it does not hit this. You can see there's a bit of a curve in the back of this, so when I flatten the back nut, it doesn't touch this. It's mostly on the inside of this rail, this piece of wood, and I've just really greased it really well on top and bottom so that it freely moves. And what I need to do now is bring out my Dremel tool and cut this off, because I've got a regular washer and a split washer on there, so this should not come off, but I don't want this nut binding on anything, you know, like the electronic lock release. So I've given it a test run. It works just fine. Like I said, I cut off the bolt on this guy so that it won't snag on anything, and I'm just going to use the electric switch here to move it up and down. So that's all the way up. And it's all the way down, and it works just fine. The rail, give it a final test run. Works good. The window's all the way up. Window's all the way down. Yeah, so the longest part of this whole job is videotaping this for YouTube. It took me 5 minutes to build the part, and to be honest, I think that that's a permanent fix for this door. Like I said, the driver's side door did the same thing, and I fixed it in exactly the same way, and that was 3 years ago. So I don't expect that this one's going to give me any problems either. So yeah, I'll put the door back together now. That'll take another 3 minutes to put that all back together. And by the way, I forgot to tell how to get the door panel off. What you have to do is you have to take the cover off of this, which it just pops off. I'm sorry, take the switch cover off first, take the switch out, this little connector here. Just put that to the side, take this off. There are 2 screws, one here and one here. When you get these 2 screws off, don't pull this thing out, push it up and it will pull right off, and then you can take the lock release and stuff that's on behind of this off. Don't pull it straight out because you'll break the tabs. Pull it up and out and it'll come right off. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but trust me, if you just pull this in this direction and then this way, that plastic will come right off. There's grooves in all of these different sides where it'll just pop right off. But when you get it off, obviously just put it back in reverse. I've already put the 2 screws in there. I'm just going to put the cover back on and then put the base back on, and it'll be back to normal again. There's really not much to these doors at all. Which is one thing I think I'm going to fix here, do some insulation or something, but we'll see. Okay, one last video with the window, the plastic put together, and the sides needing to be washed. The window works just fine, and the plastic's all put back together, and it looks like somebody who knew what they were doing did it, and that's not me. So that's how you can fix your own Sprinter door. If you try to take this to a Mercedes dealer, they're going to charge you a boatload of money because they're going to want you to replace that whole part when it's not necessary. You can just make the part on your own and fix the problem yourself. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, obviously you can put it in the questions below. If not, I hope I helped you with your problem. Take care.